Welcome to Everybody Has a Story. On this episode, we introduce you to Neville Swales, the business owner of Building a Legend. Yeah. So again, welcome to my podcast. And finally we have you on here, and it's running smooth. So I think the first question, for people who don't know you, is who is Neville Swales?
Who is Neville Swales?
Yeah. What's he up to? What does he do?
I don't claim or pretend to be any kind of engineer. The business I have with cars, was never meant to be any kind of commercial enterprise, Donovan.
Yes.
It's really an expression of a passion. I decided fairly early on that I would rather do something that I enjoyed doing and be poor, not have anything, rather than something else.
Yeah.
And I built my first car, my own car, with a prototype engine, which we actually started up this week, which was quite an exciting milestone for me, because it was only the second time that particular engine started up in Coventry, was heard in Coventry. The first time was more than 50 years ago at Browns Lane. The second time we started up in the workshop, so it was quite a thrill to hear it again. And of course, when the engine first started up, that was 50 years ago, when Jaguar's hopes of returning to Le Mans with the XJ13 were still very much alive.
Yes.
So it was quite a special moment for me. But I built my first car with that engine, and then a gentleman approached me from the States, said, "Will you build me one as well?" Somebody else did the same, and it sort of grew from there.
That's great. I mean, it's not easy. My dad had a company where we also restored vehicles, and we tried to do, and we did a replica. I'll send you a picture later on, but we did a replica of the GT40 as well.
Oh, please do. Yes, I'd like to see that.
So we were involved in that.
Of course, as you might not agree with me, but the XJ13 would have kicked the GT40's ass fairly hard, I think, if it had raced.
I think so. I'm actually a big XJ13 fan.
That's certainly what David Hobbs, who was the main test driver for the XJ13, who'd also raced GT40s.
Yes.
He reckoned it was more than competitive, and unfortunately Jaguar was so slow in the development, their heart wasn't really in it. It should have raced in '65. Which was, I don't think GT40s actually raced or competed in '65, certainly not successfully.
Yeah.
That was its window, that was its opportunity, the XJ13. '66, it should have been in that race as well. And it was in testing at the end of June '67, posting times that were very competitive with the best the GT40s were producing in '67. So sadly, it didn't happen. So it's all a what if.
Yes.
And it's that what if that really captured my imagination, Donovan. That's the main reason I got involved in the project in the first place.
Yeah.
I was captivated by the whole what if thing.
Yeah.
We'll probably never be able to answer that question because unlike the GT40, the XJ13 hasn't had the benefit of 50 years continuous development.
Yes.
I think those GT40s are probably going faster now than they ever did in period.
Yes.
Well, we're going to have a go.
It's going to be an interesting thing to watch and see the project develop, as it goes along.
Yeah. We have got an XJ13, one of my recreations, which is out in New Jersey in the States.
Yes.
That's a full race car, currently with a single overhead cam 6.8 litre engine. And it belongs to a delightful gentleman called Joe Robillard.
Yes.
Who owns a racing team called Robillard Racing.
Yes.
And he races in the IMSA series in the States with two LMP3 Norma, which I believe are Porsche prototypes. Yeah. And he's doing very well. Yeah. but he intends to develop the car now, the XJ13, and compete. It was meant to be this year, of course, but hopefully towards the end of the season or maybe next year. So we'll actually see what the car can do.
Really amazing. Are you guys going to keep the engine as factory, or have you done improvements on it?
The original prototype engine is as it was. It's pretty much as it left the factory. There were only 3 engines installed in cars. Jaguar still have 2 of those engines, and this is the 3rd.
Yes. Okay.
It's as it was put together. It was actually 66 when it was the very first V12 ever to run at Jaguar, the one I have, and the very first engine to be installed in a car. We're quite excited to see how it performs. It's certainly loud enough. 147 decibels at about half throttle, which really makes your ears bleed. I mean, it's a logarithmic scale, of course. That is seriously loud.
I mean, about 90, if I'm correct, about 94, 95 gets quite loud already, you know.
Yeah. And of course, it's an exponential scale, so 147, it seriously... I remember when I first started it up, I was living in Shropshire.
Yes.
We started up in my garage, and within about 10 minutes, we had the local vicar on his bike pedaling down to the garage to find out what all the noise... He was from the other side of the village to find out what the noise was. Seriously loud engine.
Yeah.
When we ran it at Kerborough, and there was GT40 on the track as well, and we drowned it out completely. Couldn't hear it.
But the beauty is it as smooth as the V12s that we used to get into production, or like the?
It's a very different animal to the car that eventually went into production.
Is it?
It's the same basic architecture as the 6-cylinder XK engine.
Okay.
Which is 2 valves. There's nothing clever in there. It's got the biggest valves we could get in there. But it was an engine that was designed primarily for racing, with a view to maybe using it in production cars.
Yes.
Unlike a 6-cylinder XK engine, which is designed primarily as a production engine and later raced very successfully.
Yes.
But the V12 was found to be too noisy and too big for Lion's application, which was going to be in the XJ6 saloon car at the time.
Yeah.
So they developed a rather detuned version, a single overhead cam version, which is also less costly to produce, which then went into production. So this engine was never developed. It's the engine, the V12, this particular engine, is the one that should have gone in cars like the Series 3 E-Type in 71. It should have been the V12 that Jaguar ran with.
Okay.
But sadly, cost didn't allow it.
And I'm actually quite sad, because that whole period for Jaguar was a bad era for Jaguar financially. So I mean, they were like so strained.
You're right, absolutely right. In the late 60s, it was a time when Jaguar had merged with BMC,
yes,
which was eventually to become British Leyland, had become nationalised. So all this was happening in the background. Sir William saw his big opportunity as being the United States and the XJ6 saloon. And the development of the XJ13 was delayed because their eyes were on that particular future opportunity, quite rightly, so that it was the best plan for the business. By which time cars such as the GT40 were really starting to dominate in endurance racing.
Yes.
And it was very much a case of, I think, by 67, going into 68, Jaguar decided that if they weren't going to win, they weren't going to play.
Yes.
It was very much a car of its era. It's 65, 66, 67 would have been the sweet spot for that car, which of course would then have been developed as well. In 67, Jaguar borrowed a GT40. They took it into the competition department and stripped it down. Malcolm Sayer did some aerodynamic analysis and studies of it. He found some failings, etc. But I think Jaguar took fright and they decided, okay, we're not going to play. If we're not going to win, we're not going to play. Okay. We'll spend our money elsewhere.
Yeah.
So it never raced, sadly.
Yeah. No, but it was a lovely era for design. If you look across many brands.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was very much a sweet spot, as you rightly say, Donovan. There was the one of the most beautiful cars was the Ferrari P3, which became the P4 Ferrari.
Yes.
Drop dead gorgeous car. It was about the time, a little bit later, the Lola T70.
Yes.
The GT40 as well, of course, which is a stunning car. I think was a Porsche 906 Carrera Le Mans, round about that era as well. Each car looked different, and each car was beautiful in its own right.
Yeah, they were.
We were both born too late, Donovan.
I love that era, that specific era. It's definitely a sweet spot for motorsport as well.
Absolutely, yes, yeah. One thing we were trying to do is, I had planned an event for this year. Sadly, it couldn't happen because of the virus in the States.
Yes.
Where you must, as I did, you must have watched the film, the Ford versus Ferrari film.
Yes.
It was here before Christmas, November, December time.
Yes.
And I got myself all fired up, and I was thinking, the XJ13 should have been there on that grid.
Yes.
So I spoke to my customer who had the XJ13 race car out in the States. And I said, Joe, because he's a man of means and he's as crazy as I am. And I said, Joe, we really should do something next year, maybe bring some of these cars together and stage almost a rerun of the 66 Le Mans. And he rang me less than a day later to say, okay, you're on. We're going to do this thing. And we'd lined up. It hadn't been confirmed at the time, and hopefully we'll be able to do it again in the future. The GT40, which won the race in 66, along with some of the older members of the team, a P4 Ferrari from that same race in 66, a Porsche 906, the Carrera Le Mans from 66, and of course, finally, 50 years too late, a XJ13. And we were going to organise something in Laguna Seca during the Monterey Car Week, which sadly didn't come to pass. But maybe we're still crazy enough to want to do that and to recreate that.
Should try and get some of the original drivers if they're still alive.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, because a lot of those drivers now, they're delightful gentlemen. And many of them have books out, so we were going to do book signings as well to help them promote their books. And it was going to be a celebration of that particular era of the mid to late 60s and their endurance prototypes. Yeah. I still want to do that. It's one thing on my bucket list, Donovan. One thing I want to do before I die. Before I finally curl my toes up, I want to see an XJ13 sharing the same piece of tarmac as the cars it should have competed against in 66, 67. Yeah. Then I'll die a happy man, Donovan.
Get old. What's his name? Pond. What's the racing driver? It was so good in Britain. Pond. Tony Pond.
Tony Pond. Oh yes, yeah. I know very little about him. Yeah. We had one or two quite good racing drivers, Donovan.
Okay, who would you love to have drive your car?
David Hobbs, of course.
Yes.
He was described by Mike Kimberley, still very much alive and well. I think he's in his 80s now. Mike was the project manager for XJ13. He described David Hobbs as absolutely fearless.
Okay.
And Hobbs, I think there was a list in 66 of the 27 best drivers in the world, and he was well in there. He was racing very successfully, very competitively. And he developed the XJ13. I'd love to have it. In fact, what I'd like to do, Donovan, this is another bucket list thing. We came very close at one last year, but we're going to do this. I want to recreate some of the tests with David Hobbs behind the wheel and Mike Kimberley sitting in the driver's seat, in the passenger seat.
Yes.
Of course, when he did that over 50 years ago, there was no passenger seat. Of course, the car had to have a passenger seat for Le Mans. And even the recreated car now, and our cars, the driver's seat is actually quite a large seat, a normal size seat. And the passenger seat is just to satisfy regulations, it's quite small. But Mike was sitting there next to David Hobbs on a little foam cushion with hot water pipes and oil pipes running around him. He kept burning his bum, he kept saying. And he said when he first went out with Hobbs, he had his pencil and he had his notepad, and he's trying to write like this as he was going round. He said he couldn't actually write. But I'd like to be able to recreate that particular moment. Yes. The other test driver, of course, was Richard Atwood, Dickie Atwood, and both Hobbs and Atwood were ex-Jaguar apprentices. Yes. And although Hobbs was chosen as the main development driver for the XJ13, Richard Atwood helped do the final run at Silverstone in '67 when it started posting very competitive times against the competition.
Yes.
Those two drivers I'd like to get behind the wheel, who are both alive and well. Sadly, one man who is very associated with the XJ13 was a wonderful gentleman called Norman Jewis, who was Jaguar's test driver.
Yeah.
I mean, he did some of the testing, was involved in some of the testing of the XJ13, and I would have dearly liked to see Norman behind the wheel as well. He was aware of my project. He lived only a few miles away from us when he was alive in Church Stretton. And I know Jaguar had hoped to get Norman behind the wheel of the XJ13 on his 100th birthday again. But sadly, that wasn't to be. So those three people are people I would dearly like to see behind the wheel. Plus myself, of course, Donovan.
Yeah, naturally. And
speak to me nicely, I might give you a go as well.
I'm on the other side of the world.
No, you're not too far away. You're only an overnight flight.
It'll be a dream come true as well.
I'd like to get the car down to South Africa, because having lived there, I lived in Gauteng, in Joburg, for about 4 or 5 years, and I also lived down in, I used to brew beer, believe it or not, for SAB,
yes.
And I was brewmaster for the brewery in Newlands in Cape Town, and I love the whole car culture you have in South Africa.
Yeah, we do. We have a
I
big
just love the way it's also laid back, such high levels of enthusiasm, and I would love to go down there again and maybe take the car and get involved with that.
Yes, it'll be
I've
nice.
actually booked my ticket for November. I shall be down there, probably not with the car initially, but
yes, yeah.
to go and hopefully, maybe if you can help me go and see some of the wonderful cars you have there.
Yeah, no, I will do. And yeah, so
you're on.
We'll do that. Now we were talking about testing with your car. Is the XJ13 that you manufacturing? What are the differences between the factory one that was back then and the one now? What have you altered?
I'm sure it's well documented, and I know you're very well aware, Donovan,
yes,
that the car was, in '67, at the end of testing, '67, the car was wheeled into the competition department and a cloth was thrown over it.
Yes.
And it was left there until 1971, when it was wheeled out to help promote the Series 3 V12 E-Type at Myra. And there were some issues with the car when it was first taken out. One was that the rear tyre had been plugged to cure a slow leak. And Norman, bless him, we would have done exactly the same, I'm sure, given the opportunity behind the wheel at the time. He, I think because he wasn't chosen, Lofty England published a letter berating Norman, sadly, but claiming that because Norman wasn't chosen to be the main test driver of the car, he wanted to show what he could do. And I'm sure you or I would have done exactly the same thing as Norman. He had been under instruction that this was going to be a demo for the TV. So lots of noise, low gear, high revs, but not excessive speed. But of course, for whatever happened, for whatever reason, and Norman lost the car. Maybe it was a tyre that blew out or some other thing with the car, and he lost it on at Myra. Fortunately, of course, the unintended crash test showed the basic strength of the car and the substructure of the car, because it was largely undamaged except for the outer skin.
Yes.
It only had to be rebodied. Yes. When it was rebodied, there were a number of changes made to the shape of the car. This was in the 70s. It was in the days of British Leyland, when Jaguar's heritage maybe wasn't valued as much as it is nowadays. So authenticity wasn't a particular concern. The car, this was the 70s, of course, so it had these great big 1970s alloy wheels. They put typically 1970s big flared wheel arches on the car, which it didn't have originally. The rebuilt car is slightly shorter. It's a little bit higher at the back to blend in the revised wheel arches. It's got different rivet patterns on it. There are a number of things rather different to the original car. One thing that Jaguar weren't aware of at the time was that the tooling had survived to make the windscreen, which I managed to find when I put my recreation together. Yeah. So the original car has now got a plastic screen. It's always had a plastic screen. It doesn't fit particularly well. It's also got a rubber seal on the windscreen. I can bore you for hours about some of the details.
No, it doesn't matter.
The XJ13 was one of the first cars to have a bonded-in windscreen.
Yeah, okay.
And there's one nice story. There was a gentleman called Bob Knight, and he was an absolute artist. He created Jaguar's one-offs and race cars in the body shop. He did all the metal work. And one day, Malcolm Sayer had very carefully calculated his airflow on the car, the smoothness of the bonnet, etc. And it used to have a very smooth front bonnet, as our cars do. And one day, Bob Knight took it upon himself to inset a little Jaguar winged logo in the nose of the car. So he beat it in, beat a little depression, put the badge in. And of course, when Malcolm saw it the next day, he gave him mother and father of a telling off and made him beat it out and return to how it was.
Yeah.
Malcolm Say would be turning in his grave, I think, to see how the rebuilt car now has got rows of proud rivets sitting across the nose of the car, which would have interrupted Malcolm's very carefully designed airflow. He wouldn't be happy with that other difference as well in the rebuilt car.
Yes.
What we tried to do, there's a lot of blood, sweat and tears and assistance from a lot of the old guys involved at the time with data. I exhausted the archive of Jaguar Heritage fairly quickly. Jaguar Heritage, this was the days before Jaguar Classic had sort of taken over Jaguar Heritage, were very cooperative, very helpful. They helped me with putting the engine together. They helped promote me with the car. We were in their magazines, etc. And we built the first car. And sadly, that's now that Jaguar, of course, they're in the replica business themselves, so they don't take too kindly to people producing recreations of cars.
That was my next question.
The car that I'm sorry.
So that was going to be my next question about how your relationship with Jaguar is.
Well, as a bunch of individuals, Jaguar Land Rover is full of some wonderfully enthusiastic and really likable and nice people. But of course, once you get into the legal and commercial environment, it becomes an entirely different kettle of fish altogether.
Okay.
But I am still building cars, very small number of cars. What I tried to do, it was about 18 months ago, I thought, okay, I don't want to keep poking Jaguar with a stick necessarily, because basically I'm a Jaguar enthusiast, through and through. I love the cars that were produced, the classic Jaguars. And I thought, okay, why not build my own car, a car which isn't an XJ13, which looks very different. And we concocted a what-if story. You'll be aware of the team Mercuria Cos, who were still racing successfully in endurance racing.
Yes.
They had their success in the 50s. I think it was 57, where the D types came. Was it first, second, fourth, fifth, and sixth, or something along those lines, where they absolutely dominated the Le Mans, and they still racing very successfully. And I thought to myself, what would have happened if in '67 someone from Mercuria Cos had gone into the competition department, lifted the cover on the XJ13 and said, okay, we're going to take this car now, we're going to race it in '69, we're going to develop it and race it. And that's where our concept car, which is very different to the XJ13, had its roots, where it came from. And it's a shape that's very different to the XJ13, but in the same spirit. It takes a lot of cues from other cars at the time, the Lolas, the Porsches, the Ferraris that were racing in endurance racing at the time. None of the technology that we used to build the first concept car or any of the future cars was technology that was available after '69. All of the cars, one thing that I agonized over long and hard, Donovan, is that all of the cars on the grid in '69 had composite bodies. None of them had aluminium bodies anymore, although some had aluminium substructures. As the Mercuria Cos car does, the LM69 as we called it, Le Mans '69. But Jaguar took exception to that after Christmas, and I think maybe they were jealous, maybe they didn't have the same idea, and they objected to that as well. But having said that, we still got still have a sort of a relationship with Jaguar, but It's
Yeah.
I have to be careful what I say.
Yeah. No, listen, yeah, it's going to be on public, so let's try and keep it nice and civil.
Absolutely, yeah. Oh, yeah, they are civil. They are very professional. We're all enthusiasts at heart, really.
Yes, yeah.
We all have the same aim. Sadly, with these things, once money rears its ugly head, Donovan, then it changes a lot of things.
No, it does. Like I said, like when we did the GT40 and we did a Lotus 7 type, and we even did an old BMW bike similar to a BMW.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
our logo was very similar to the BMW's logo. And
The propeller logo, yeah.
yes, so BMW actually took very big exception to that. And we had to also go through some legal sort of stuff with them, and eventually, I mean, obviously it had to be taken off. We couldn't use that logo anymore, and
But I can understand that. That is a trademark.
yes,
That's clear. It's a registered trademark.
yeah,
But Jaguar do not have copyright to this
Okay.
day on the C-Type, the D-Type, arguably the E-Type, although they'd probably win that one, or the XJ13. They
Okay, I
do
don't
not
know.
hold copyright on any of those cars.
okay,
Trademark's a different thing. I can't
Yes.
call it a Jaguar, can't call it XJ13. Can't use a Jaguar logo.
yeah, and that you know, when I was reading your site, there was a talk when talking about the V12 engine called a Terra.
That's right. Do you like the name?
Yeah, I like it a lot.
TERA, it came from, I had a bit of a brainwave, Donovan. I thought Terra, as in terabyte, is to the power of 12. And I thought, well, that would work. And of course, the word Terra as well comes from the Greek teras, which means
Yes.
monster.
Yes,
So I thought, okay, my new engine is going to be a Terra V12. And you can think of it, it's not a copy of the original prototype quad-cam engine. It's a spiritual successor, if you like,
yeah,
to that. So I don't invoke any sensitivities. I don't upset any sensitivities at Jaguar. It is not a replica, not a copy of that engine. It's in the spirit of the engines that you would hear running down that Mulsanne straight in '69.
so effectively it's your
Double
own
overhead cam engine.
engine,
It's my own. It's absolutely my own engine.
which is
It's-
amazing.
It's a double overhead cam engine using the basic architecture of engines that were running in the mid to late 60s.
Yeah. And I mean, how many people in their lifetime can say, listen, I've built my own engine?
I told you I'm a bit crazy, Donovan. I do these things. I shall never make any money doing any of this, but that's not the point. That's not what I'm trying to do. That's not what I'm about.
Yes.
As long as I can keep doing these things, and I can still afford to eat, I'm seriously very happy.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So on
Maybe
the,
I'm naive, maybe I'm crazy, but that's how I want it.
you remind me of my dad. My dad had the same sort of attitude when because we were in the fiberglass game primarily.
Yeah.
And with that, he always approached every new project with that sort of attitude. That not here to make money.
Yeah.
It was a hobby for him, you see. It was a hobby for both of us, in fact.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
money was the last thing we thought of.
I can sympathise with that. I get turned on as much by the history of these things,
Yes.
and the opportunity it gives me to meet some wonderful people. It's what it's all about for me.
It is.
I just love it. I adore it. I adore that world.
Yeah, well, we enjoyed creating stuff, and sometimes that's not the best if you want to make money. If you enjoy creating stuff, because you actually need money to create the stuff. But there was
What
us.
did you race, Donovan?
No, we didn't race anything. It was we built, like I said, replicas, and then we also did a lot of glass fiber components and creations, one-off creations for people, especially in the motor industry. So they wanted fenders for their race car, or a bonnet that needed a special scoop on it, or bulge. We would develop those things for those people.
Yeah.
So it was fun, and we enjoyed it because we did many fun projects, you know. But
Yeah.
sadly, none of them
What
made us
that
money.
technology, I imagine, has changed nowadays. I'm sorry, we have a slight lag here,
Okay.
Donovan. I don't mean to talk over you.
No,
Apologies.
sadly, it didn't make us any money, but we loved it, you know.
Yeah. That's what it's about. That is absolutely what it's about, Donovan. Really is. Seriously
Yes.
is.
Yeah.
And I say to people who express the same kind of enthusiasm and passion for these cars, any fellow enthusiast is always very welcome to come and visit us in Coventry in the workshop. I can make sure there's a nice warm English beer waiting for you. We might have some cold beers as well. Anyone who expresses enthusiasm for these cars is always more than welcome.
Yes. Oh, that's awesome. And with this building a legend, and you now going to, are you going into production with this thing, or are you just waiting for customers to come in? How does it work with you when it comes to these cars?
A lot of it is word of mouth. People will approach me and say, will you produce one? I'm in a very fortunate position in that I can choose who I build cars for. And there are I won't mention names, of course, but there are some people who come, and it's very clear that they see it purely as an investment, as something they may not even drive themselves, and that just switches me off completely. And other people who come and say, will you build me a red one? I want it left-hand drive. I want gold-plated fittings on it. I said, sorry, not interested.
Okay. So you can be at least in a position where you can say, well, I actually want guys to drive these things, and
yeah,
basically.
Which is one reason why this wonderful gentleman Joe, I've been blessed with my customers in that we end up being friends. Cars are a great leveler.
Yes.
So even poor people like me and some of the very wealthy people who can afford to buy these cars, we've got this common denominator, this common interest, which I love amongst almost any car, any type of car environment.
Yes.
We've got this common interest, and I really do appreciate like that. And I'm very blessed in that my customers are very enthusiastic people. And if somebody wants to race one, which this gentleman Joe does, then he can do no wrong as far as I'm concerned.
And that's nice. I mean, it's nice to see something when your creation being used and not just being put into a garage and left.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. These are not museum pieces. They're dynamic, real, running. And even for a rubbish driver like me, Donovan, all of my races, my dices were at the back of the field, at the back of the grid.
Yes.
I had two very early E-types. One of them I used as my company car when I was in South Africa. And I used to race that at the weekend at Zandvoort, Zwartkops,
yes.
Kyalami I've raced, and down in Cape Town as well. Port PE. I raced on that circuit you have at Port Elizabeth.
Yes, Coventry.
Yes, that you can drive on during the normal day anyway, which I did a few times as well. And I just love the whole. I'd love to get one of my cars down there, and we'll have a bit of a party. We'll have a race. We'll get some enthusiasts together.
It would also be nice to see how it is in different climate.
Yeah. It's the different altitudes as well, of course, make quite a big difference.
Well, that's what I was saying.
Down to where you are.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like the climate, the altitude will definitely affect it, and it'll be nice to see the difference and maybe do some tweaking for customers who maybe in Australia or whatever, if you want to.
Well, the beauty of these cars, especially at my sort of level of racing, is that the speed is more limited by my ability than the power of the engine.
Yes.
So you tend not to see too much of a difference.
But that's the fun part. I mean, I know a lot of guys, especially modern people, like to have all this fancy suspension, discs, ABS, and all these things. And you actually can take a car to it almost beyond its limits sometimes.
Yeah.
These cars from the 60s, 60s, 70s, you can't. It will show you. It will give you a hiding.
Definitely, Donovan. And if you think about it, it's the same with the XJ13. You've got this monster of an engine 6 inches off the back of your neck.
Yes.
And there are no driver aids, no traction control, none of that stuff. Just your right foot. Yeah. And even for a driver like me, I'm not a race driver by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah. But it flatters you. It's a car. Jaguar really knew what they were doing when they set these cars up. It's a delight to drive. It doesn't try to kill you. It's
okay.
You can drive it on the road without any issue whatsoever. In fact, the cars we're building now are fully road legal as well, completely street legal.
Okay.
The last one we we registered was December 2019, just before Christmas. So that had a December 2019 registration.
Are we allowed to ask how many are in production or have been sold?
I'm a little bit cagey about that.
Okay.
Because not very many.
Yes. But still, I mean, you're getting 45.
4 or 5, something
4 or 5.
like that.
Okay. That's still good though. I mean, it's a specialized car. And there's a certain heritage to it. If you think of it.
It can take a year and a half, 8 months to a year and a half to complete one of these cars.
Okay.
And the nice thing with the customers we have is they get involved in the journey as well as we put the car together.
Yeah.
Because one of the milestones is when we sit them in the car and we tailor, because we're small enough to be able to tailor things precisely for the customer. So he'll sit in the seat, we'll make sure the gear lever falls to his hand, the pedal box is exactly where it needs to be, the steering wheel position, everything like that. And what's really nice, Donovan, is some of these are very powerful people, very wealthy people.
Yes.
You sit them in the car, we go through that, and you can see their eyes starting to widen. And you can see the little boy comes out, as it does in all of us. We've all got little boy inside. And it's just a lovely thing to see. And that whole journey, that 8 months to a year and a half, is a wonderful part of the process as well for me.
Yes. I know that sort of feeling to a degree because of the GT40s that we used to do, because we also tailor them to specific people. So your customer would come down, you'll get to interact with him, and his family often sometimes. His family will bring his family down, his wife or his kids. So you got to meet the whole troop.
That's exactly how it is. We've got one person, he's nearly 7 feet tall. I don't know what that is in meters, but it's lots. And we've had to modify things slightly so we can actually get him in the car, because it's actually quite a small car.
Yeah.
But now we make it so that even someone 7 foot tall can get in there and get comfortable.
Yeah, that's nice. So there are a few modifications that you can do or do allow for the customer that would. Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. We can move the seat
reason.
back, we can lower the seat.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's little tweaks that aren't visible.
Yes.
Things like the height of the dashboard in front of you. Just an inch or two higher makes a dramatic difference.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the differences between the rebuilt car that Jaguar have, the one and only original car, and the original, is that the rebuilt car has 2 great big scoops cut out of the dashboard so that people like Lofty England could get in the car, so could get his knees under the dashboard.
Okay.
Whereas we don't have to do that now. We've achieved it in different ways.
Okay.
We can get much more rubber in the car now, much wider tyres, without having to have those horrible big flared wheel arches on the car. We've re-engineered little bits like that. The car now is a lot stronger, and there are a lot of improvements we've made that are more for safety, more than anything else, rollover protection, etc., which are things that are not visible, but they make the car a much safer environment to be in.
Did you use the pop rivet technique as well on that car, or pop rivet?
Rivets?
Yeah.
They're not pop rivets, they're solid rivets.
Okay.
There's 2 types. We use 3 types of rivet. Where you have steel, which is all the front suspension frame, and aluminium, you always use a copper rivet to prevent that electrolytic corrosion.
Okay.
And then we have a solid rivets, which can be either mushroom on the top, so they countersunk rivets which end up with a flush surface, or with a little domed rivet. But they're all hand-applied solid rivets.
Okay, so something similar to like the 2004 XJR's and the X350. Because they also used like rivets in their building.
I don't believe so. The current all-aluminium cars, I don't believe. I know there's some very high-tech adhesives and things like that are used.
Okay, because I've noticed on my car there seems to be rivets on my over XJR.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not been crashed in the past, has it, Donovan? You've not crashed it and rebuilt it.
No. It's quite nice. I've actually been
They may very well do that. They may very well use rivets. We don't use the sort of traditional pop rivet.
Okay.
They're not structurally safe.
Okay. So, coming close to an end, what car do you drive daily? Or do you have a collection of cars?
A 4x4, just a truck that I drive around for work.
Okay.
But I treated myself because I like engines. I bought myself one of the last of the line XKRs, you know, the 5-litre supercharged XKR, and I love it. To me, that's one of the last classic Jaguars.
Yes.
There's still a bit of a sayer in there.
Yeah.
Before Jaguar went took a very different direction.
I'm actually a big fan, actually, and some people might disagree with me, but I actually like the Ford era Jaguar. I'm a fan of the Ford era.
The XK type.
Yeah, the XK, the XKRs, the XJR from that period, the S types.
Yeah.
I'm actually quite a fan of that.
Nice. And that V8 is a lovely engine.
It is.
William Lyons might not have approved. He did things in 6s, either in 12s or 6.
Yes. Well, I mean, one of the best.
It's a lovely engine. Really nice engine.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very impressed with it. It's a little bit mine's a little bit tweaked and stuff like that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm a big Jag fan. I've had a couple of Jags, not my first Jag. So yeah, I think I can wear the badge proudly that I'm a certified Jag nut.
Good for you. I think Jaguar were assembled in South Africa for quite a long time, certainly into the 60s, 70s.
Yeah, I think the Series 1, the XJ6.
Yeah.
I think that was,
Yeah, I did have a Series 1 that was raced in the 12 hours at Kyalami one time when I was there. I don't know what's happened to that car since.
I've had one Series 1. I've had two Series 2s. Then I've had one Series.
You should have kept them all, Donovan. They're fetching good money. Beautiful cars, very competent cars.
Particularly the Series 1. The Series 1 seems to be very, very collectible now. So
yeah, I agree. It's a lovely car, really nice car.
And then my friend, also a very wealthy gentleman, and he's now restoring his Series 3 E-Type.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Yeah. Well, I have a nice engine that would fit in that car. A quad cam.
He's also got some lovely.
It actually fits without any modification to the car, to the Series 3. And there's a lot more space around the engine as well. You don't have all that nightmare of plumbing which you've got on the single overhead cam V12.
I just hope
very clean installation.
Yeah, I just hope he's going to realise the finishing of it, because at the moment he's just got cancer, so he's sitting in hospital at the moment.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, please give him my best wishes.
I will do.
I hope he gets through that.
Yeah, he's a very nice gentleman. We come from very different backgrounds. Like I say, like you were just saying, the common denominator is cars.
Absolutely.
So when we had the factory, when we were building the cars, he would come there, and all he would do would go through the back where our parts are, and he loved little tools and little parts. So he would fiddle in the back in our storeroom, looking through all the parts and stuff like that. That's where our friendship sort of like came along. You know? We invited people regularly through our premises just to have a look.
Please give him regards from England, from Coventry.
I will do. I'll tell him.
Tell him to get that car finished, and we'll put a proper engine in for him.
He's also got a nice Ferrari that he's trying to. I think he wants to try and get restored now shortly as well. But I think things are.
Which one?
I'm gonna maybe put it wrong. I keep getting the numbers confused. I think the two.
So do I. Don't worry.
275.
275.
Oh, right, nice.
But a right-hand drive.
Is that
right-hand drive?
That's a GTO.
Yeah. On the proper side, yeah.
Yes.
Of course, you drive on the correct side as well in South Africa.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Well, it's nice hearing your story, and I do wish you all the best, and I hope maybe we can see each other maybe in November. We'll see how your itinerary works and.
Yeah, I'd enjoy that. That would be nice. Nice thing to do. I'm hoping to see friends up in Joburg, and there's a Jaguar garage there, particularly on a Friday. Because I worked in breweries at the time, Friday night I'd have my beer allowance. So Friday night I'd go down to the Jaguar garage, empty the beers out of the boot, and work would stop, and we just have a few castle lagers on every Friday night.
Yes.
So I shall go there and then down to Cape Town again, and hopefully PE.
Well, if you do make it to PE, we'll definitely meet. I'll take you for a beer, and I'll try and organise something for you then when you're down here.
I'd enjoy that. That would be really nice.
Yeah.
I've got a very soft spot for South Africa.
Okay.
I know you have had rough times in the past, but I'm hoping that, I'm very optimistic for the future. It's an amazing country, wonderful people. I love it there.
And it's a very car nutty place, so I would like to see it survive.
Yeah?
I mean, our club is so big. I mean, when I joined it, I only joined it 2 years ago, but the classic car club here is in PE alone is such a huge club, and so many different vehicles and car people from different parts of life and stuff. So it's nice.
Yeah, that's nice. I love that. That's fantastic.
And quite a few young people coming through now. 'Cause I mean, most of us, are like probably in their 60s to 80s, but now we're getting a whole lot of younger people who are finding these classic cars and actually enjoying them. I think largely to the fact that they are simple things to sometimes fix and look after. A lot of them, compared to these modern cars where you need electronic knowledge and things like that. So
I used to use my Series 1 E-Type Roadster. It was a February 62 car. I drove it every day in South Africa, and I think my toolbox was a hammer and a screwdriver.
Yeah.
You break down the side, and there's some place you don't want to break down there. You break down the side of the road, you can usually fix it and get it going again.
Well, that was used to be me. I had a Rover Vitesse. And when you go up to Joburg and stuff, and then you get by the dam somewhere near the Orange Free State, Bloemfontein, and the car would start with its problems. And then your car would start with the problem because the air, obviously the density of the air there. So then you got out and you...
Of course, yeah.
And then you did your own tweak alongside the road, got back in and you went, and same back down and things like that. So I enjoyed that. It was so easy where you can just fix your own car along the way.
And I could, with my E-Type, I did 4 or 5 times the drive from Joburg to Cape Town. And that was a wonderful experience.
Yeah.
With just a hammer and screwdriver to keep me going. Perfect.
But this 4.2 6-cylinder engines are amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I loved it. Especially the one, because I went on a honeymoon with our one Jag, and we went all over the place with it, and it never really gave us any trouble of any sort. You get the naysayers who say, but it leaks oil or this and that. But if they looked after well, they look after you well.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, the first the 6-cylinder engine first was put in a car in 1947, and they're still racing them successfully today.
Yeah.
They're still putting them in cars until the 90s, I think.
And amazing torque. I mean, the torque in those cars is...
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And that engine is such a wonderful engine. I'm a big 6-cylinder, the 6-cylinder fan of the 4.2.
Yeah. So. Yeah, nice engines. The 3.4 is a lovely engine. It's just so free revving, and 3.8.
Yeah. Well, that's sort of like the 3.8 is sort of like the crown jewel in Jaguar circles. Especially when it comes to like the Mark II and the E-Type.
Yeah. Yeah.
Funny enough, that's another car people are telling me I must buy as a Mark II.
Oh yes. I love those cars.
So,
those Mark IIs are wonderful saloons. Mm.
Well, I don't want to keep...
You must have some nice rust-free examples up there in South Africa as well.
We do, especially, I mean, obviously on the reef we do,
yes. Come and have a look.
Yeah. Down here on the coast, well, it's debatable, but yes.
Yeah.
But you definitely have some good examples, and I'm amazed what cars sort of come out of the what do you call it, other garages around here sometimes still.
Yeah, still.
Yeah, there's still some nice cars that come out of the garages every now and then. And you go like, wow, we actually have one of these in the country,
Yeah. I will keep looking.
Yeah.
Let me know if you find some nice ones.
Yeah.
I'm looking for Series 3 E-Types at the moment. If you find any, give me a shout.
I said, I was just talking to my friend. I said, we're just discussing now. My friend is burning a Series 3, and he's just restored. Yeah, it's been restored. I don't know if you know, but in Knysna Wilderness area, there's a group of people there that actually restore cars, and that's where he's restoring it.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're very, very good at what they do there. Crosby.
Yeah.
And something. Can't remember.
Yeah, it's like many parts of the world. There's a lot of skill there still. A lot of hidden away in South Africa.
Yeah.
And in the States as well. It's amazing how many Jaguar specialists and skilled people are working on Jag still there.
But even like with my XJ, lots of people will say to me, it's going to be a very expensive car to run, which it is to a degree. I mean, it's not a cheap car to run, but if you know where to look and you have the connections, and it's actually not that bad to maintain and keep going.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, and that's why.
You get a lot of car for your money with those.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm finding that the Jag guys are actually very, very helpful.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's the same the world over, Donovan, with Jaguars.
Yeah.
Probably other marks as well.
Yes. Well, listen, I don't want to keep you. Thanks for the time that you've taken out of your life. It's been such a great.
Oh, thank you. It's nice to speak to you.
Yeah, and I really do. Like I said, I do follow your posts and your story because I'm really enjoying it. And now, what I would do in this interview at the end of it, I will post links to like your website and some YouTube.
Oh, you're welcome to. Yeah.
And then some YouTube videos and stuff that you have online. So people can go to those and see how the engine sounds and things like that. So, yeah,
that'd be good. Yeah.
Okay, you happy with all that? I can do that. Okay, cool.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
100%. Well, Neville, I'm gonna say cheers then, and thanks for the time.
Okay. Lekker. Hey, donkey.
Baie goed.
Tot ziens.
Tot ziens. See you, Neville.
Cheers, mate. All the best.
Okay, bye.